Hey everybody, it's kayflye and welcome back to another Sims 4 build challenge. Today I'm going to try to build a cute little cottage for under 10,000 simoleans. If you're looking for tips and tricks on how you can build really cheap houses, you should definitely keep watching because I'm going to be using a lot of hidden objects that are super useful in making your cheap houses way better. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about some of the ones I have on the screen right now, because what I start off by doing is just pulling out some of the objects I know I'm going to need. So like I know my sim needs a bed, I know they need, toilet, sink, stove, etc. And a lot of these really cheap items are from Eco Lifestyle. For example, the bed is a kind of a stinky bed, but it only costs 25 simoleons. And then the two little pink chairs that I have out, those cost 10 simoleon each. And the table is the cheapest table in the game. So that's super beneficial and definitely a big pro tip if you're trying to build cheap and you have eco lifestyle. And one thing I really wanted to do is I want to make this house cute. Like, I don't want it to be kind of like, oh, I built a house for 10,000 simoleons and it's really lame and boring. I wanted to build a house for 10,000 simoleons that was fun and that I would actually want to play in. So I was really inspired actually by the pink chairs of all things. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a modern house, but also maybe I'll do like a pastel cottage. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. And I initially was thinking of doing a modern house, which is why I was building in Oasis Springs. And, the pastel cottage doesn't really fit the vibe, but that's okay. I ended up moving it into Henford on Bagley at the end of the video when I did the landscaping. But I was super pleased on how this turned out. I don't think I've ever built a tiny, like, not a tiny house, but a house for only 10,000 simoleons that actually looked cute. The ones I usually made were ones for legacy challenges, and they looked really stinky. So this one I feel like I'd actually really like playing in just because it's really fun. There's a lot of pink, there's a lot of turquoise, and then I threw in a couple other bright colors as well just to make it interesting. And I definitely splurged on a lot of items that I didn't necessarily need to, which you'll see a little bit later on. Like, this build has a TV and a computer. Although the TV is one of those like secret pro tip items I was talking about earlier. If you go into bb.show hidden objects and then search for eco lifestyle, there's a TV that's only 25 simoleons, which is such a big money saver. And it's also, you'll see it in a little bit, it's like this vintage TV. There it is. And it actually looks kind of cool, like, not gonna lie. So it's definitely a big plus. That and those 10 simoleon chairs and the 25 simoleon bed, like, some pretty good savings, like, not gonna lie. But anyways, I was trying to make this house be fun and have as many nice things as possible, and I wanted it to look good. I've really struggled with how I wanted to do the layout. Initially I was thinking like, oh, maybe I'll limit packs, and I was like, no, I kind of want to use whatever I want, but like maybe just rein it in a little bit. I almost used the couch from my first pet stuff because I actually do like it, and then I felt like that was just, maybe a step too far. So I ended up using some nifty knitting stuff since I wanted to use the rugs, because the nifty knitting rugs, if you search and debug, they're free. So can definitely help fill out your rooms a little bit more, is having free rugs. And I think another essential of just building cheap houses is to make them really small. This is technically a tier 2 tiny home, which is nice because if you play in it, your sim will get double skill gains and I think double relationships as well. And that kind of is also a huge plus if you're playing a legacy challenge and you want your sim to have their skills higher and to form better relationships with their friends. But I did have to fiddle around with the inside a little bit because it's a weird shape. I've resized the room a couple times, just trying to figure out something that would work. And I really wanted to get all the essentials in here, like the TV and the computer. But on a tight budget, it's a little bit tricky. So I definitely leveraged those really cheap items. And of course, we do have the stinkiest computer, but it does work. So, I feel like that's kind of all you can ask for with some of this stuff. But I had so much fun making this. I feel like I don't usually build things that are uber colorful like this, so it was fun to do something a little bit different. I think the hardest room, which you're gonna see in just a moment, was doing the bedroom. because I couldn't figure out which bed I wanted to use because I was looking for something that would match the kind of electric pink and teal vibes that I have going on in the rest of the house. And I just couldn't find the right thing. I was like sorting by color and like looking through all the beds and trying to find something that would be cute. And as you can see, I would put something down and then put it away and then go through the swatches again, like as if this was going to change somehow. And, obviously the options were still the same. And I just kept going back and forth. And then eventually I decided to use a bed from Cottage Living, even though it was 1,000 simoleans, which, feels really excessive, but, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. And then also, don't worry, I did change the roof eventually. I thought it was going to be like a fun, cute vibe, and then the pink was really just too much on the exterior of the house, so I decided that I didn't need it after all. Though I did use the Cottage Living wallpaper, even though it is kind of a lot, just because I felt like it would be fun and kind of add to the cottage core vibes of the place, especially after I moved the house back to Henford on Bagley, and I put it on the Cordelia's secret cottage lot, which was actually a really nice place for it. But here you can see I finally was just like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to use the Cottage Living bed, even though it's really pricey. And I used the bureau as well because I did want it to have really strong like cottage core vibes. And also just feel kind of like a fun, kooky, colorful place that you could have maybe like an artsy sim or really any type of legacy sim who's just like a little bit of a character. I felt like this house could be really nice, or you could just invent some really fun stories about how your sim got this house or who owned it before, or you could have all sorts of like homemade lore that you've invented, and I feel like that's kind of fun to play with. And I think the biggest thing with this house was trying to make it feel like, not that it was too cluttered, but that it was complete and there weren't just big empty spaces, and that it just didn't feel empty, because I feel like some of the really cheap EA builds, especially some of the ones in Oasis Springs, they're really dark and they're really empty, and I kind of want to go for the opposite vibe here of you have this really tiny, really cheap house, but it feels like it's full and colorful, and it doesn't feel like it's just like, oh, I tried to build something for 10,000 simoleans for YouTube, like, oh boy, this is so exciting. I wanted it to feel like it was something fun and like you'd actually want to play with this, and that is actually kind of like the desired vibe, was to have this little tiny cottage, which, it kind of was. And I feel like if I do a legacy challenge anytime soon, I definitely would want to use this house because it's just so cute. There's so much fun color, there's so much personality to it, and I feel like that's really helpful when you're trying to build stories for your legacy, is to have something that is a little bit kooky and has a little bit more character, which I feel like you really get in this house. Then just starting to finally just put the final details of what types of clutter I want to do. Is of course my favorite clutter item, the tissue box. Maybe it's just my favorite because I have allergies and I always need a tissue, and then I also just use some of the other Cottage Living clutter, like the little bunny, and then also the Cottage Living books. Those are another big pro tip of cheap things to use. They're 10 simoleans. They're the cheapest books I think we have in the game. So if you have Cottage Living and Eco Lifestyle, it's so easy to build cheap homes because there's so much stuff from those packs that's not a lot of money and looks really nice. So you can feel like you have a way nicer home than you maybe should. So I was thinking about putting some paintings up on the walls, and the wallpaper is just so busy that I kind of decided it wasn't really necessary, and there's just so much color and so much stuff going on. I couldn't really figure out how to make it work, but I feel like it looks pretty nice. Definitely exceeded my expectations, so that was a really good thing. And I feel like this house has all the things that your sim needs as well, because it has a computer, it has a TV, has mirrors, so they can get their charisma skill up, and then there's plenty of space, obviously, in the yard where you could add things for gardening, or you could add things for art, and I think that makes this house really versatile if you want to play in it. But yeah, so just wrapping this up, to have a couple more clutter items And I'd love to hear what you guys think of this house. Do you think that this cottage turned out cute? Do you think that I should try this build challenge again, but with an even smaller budget? Like, is it even possible to make a cute house for, say, 5,000 simoleans? Honestly, it could be, especially if I use that really cheap bed from Eco Lifestyle. That gives me like almost 1,000 simoleans back on this build. So I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say. So you should definitely comment down below. And then also, this house is available on my Sims 4 gallery, which is just the same name as my YouTube channel. And I also built another 10,000 simoleon house when I was kind of experimenting and playing around for this video that is a little bit more modern looking. So if you're interested in downloading either of those houses, they're both on my gallery. You feel free to check those out. But I had so much fun doing this, and if you have any other ideas for build challenges, I'm always game for a new challenge. So feel free to comment those down below as well. I'd love to hear what you guys want to see and just kind of try something new. Now we're just getting into some landscaping, and then here's where I'm quickly just saving this to my gallery so I can move the lot. Or not to my gallery, I'm saving it to my library. And then once you have something in your library, you can go and move lots, and it's super easy. So here's the final build after I put in a lot from debug. I accidentally turned off my recording, so unfortunately I don't have that footage, but this is what it looks like. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so you know every time I post, and I'll see you all next time.